Scrappy Peeps, it's Suzanna today for ThermOWeb, and I'm sharing this snow globe layout that I created using a variety of ThermOWeb product. The beginning of this video is going to be very technique heavy. That's where I do most of the things with ThermOWeb, and then I will supplement that at the end with the rest of the process video as the layout comes together. So I have created this snow globe cut file based on a image that I found in Pinterest, or it was Pinterest inspired, the snow globe, and I traced the image and created a cut file. I deleted the things that didn't work for me, and I am now going to use bits and pieces of the cut file in order to use them as masks. So here I have transfer gel, and I am using a palette knife to rub the transfer gel through the homemade stencil. Basically, these are going to be trees and snow for the inside of the snow globe, and I am going to use flock for this particular part. After applying this, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, and I am going to, as I wait for that to dry, kind of kill two birds with one stone, and I'm going to go ahead and use an Echo Park stencil for the snow around the edges of the snow globe. And for that, I'm using, as I said, an Echo Park stencil. And I have used pixie spray on the back of this already and let that dry. I didn't show you, I apologize. And in order to not get a messy surface, I am just going to put some scratch paper underneath that. And I am using the new silver Gina K Glitz glitter gel, and just kind of move the stencil around the circumference of the snow globe there, and apply that for a wintry effect to my snow globe. This pattern paper is from Echo Park. I have all of the winter collections, and I'm going to pull a bunch of Echo Park stuff and mix and match. I would left to my own devices, I'm not very good at being a single collection creator. I really would prefer to mix and match and coordinate and customize things. So what I'm doing here is I've got the white flock, and that lighter green is Green Envy, and then that darker green is called Emerald Green, and I'm going to use those two different shades of green for the trees. But what I'm doing here is trying to cut out the white that I will overlay where the snow is going to be. So I've flipped the stencil, or the homemade stencil, and I'm going to just trace out loosely, leaving a generous margin on either side, but again, not enough to block where the tree stems will be, and put that down. And you want to put flock side down. I have left this to dry, by the way. I did not, I sped through that, obviously. And you can see to the left there, I had a piece of wood veneer, wood pattern paper, I should say, that I had put gesso on. The problem is when I finish with this, the gesso, it's too white and you can't really see the borders of the snow globe, and the snow globe doesn't pop. So I am going to change the border. I am now adhering all of the bits and pieces for the trees. I've put the snow down, and if I were smart, you'll see I do end up using some of the purple tape to hold that down, but in the process of moving this around, things do shift, and I didn't check that. So a few of my trees end up being half white, half green, and a little bit of the snow ends up having some green fleck in it. So I do recommend, if you're going to do something similar to what I've done and you're going to use multiple color flocks, it's completely doable. Just make sure that you use your purple tape to adhere that down. And as you run the purple tape through the heat embosser, it does continue to remain removable. So I'm going to run it through a second time just because I wanted to make sure that everything stuck, but I couldn't help but peek, and so you can see those two trees there. I will tell you that when you run the Glitz glitter gel through the hot laminator, it does change the consistency of it. I really like the raised texture of the glitter gel, and it still stays raised, but it becomes more flat, flat but raised, if that makes any sense. It loses the sort of the mountain peaks that are in it. So that is the scene that I am creating within that snow globe. So what I have here is a photo of my family, and we are standing in front of the homestead. It is a hotel, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as I go through this. So what I have here is I've also created another stencil from the file, and I've also created backings for the base of the snow globe. That's one of the beauties of creating your own files, is you can pull things apart and create things that make life much easier for you. So I've used the white metallics, which is called white pearl, and the reason that I use the metallics there for that shadow on the base is because it looks like a shadow. You know, when you look at a snow globe or something that's supposed to represent a shadow, it has a little bit of shimmer. It's not a shimmer, shine to it. And so I liked the way that the metallics added the shine of that base there. I am using Ultra Bond to adhere anything that has a really fine line, such as this cut file or the snowflakes that I'm going to use. I use this liquid adhesive for. I love my Ultra Bond, especially with the fine tip, now that I've figured out how to use the fine tip, and I've gotten really good at putting that pin in with one hand. So the trick with the Ultra Bond is there are metal tips that you can buy, and I am just using a pin. It's basically just a sewing pin. It's a pin that's actually from Michael's dress shirt that just seals off that metal tip. The glue will dry very quickly and gum up that tip if you don't seal that off. So you can see there how I just swapped back and forth. I wasn't sure about that white gessoed piece of cardstock, and so I'm going with the plain piece. What I'm doing here is I'm cutting a slit where the side of that hill snow is to cover up where I made a mistake in the greens. I was going to have a hard time figuring out how to get the photo to fit in there anyway, so in many ways it ends up being a perfect mistake so that I can just slide the photo in there, cover up those trees, and run with it. So I'm going to show you here the beginnings of using some Tim Holtz files, or they're not files, dies, through my manual die cut machine to create the greenery that is going to be on either side of the base of the snow globe. And then I am going to spare you the agony of watching me go through that a million times, and I will just delete all of that part of the video. But safe to say that I run literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 10 times I run these different greens through my die cut machine in order to be able to get the greenery that's going to go on either side. And I am going to use, because there are multiple pieces, I am going to use again my Ultra Bond to glue those together. And again, the fine tip is perfect for this fine detail work that I'm going to do here. So I've got all of my pieces, and I'm going to put them together, and I am also going to just sort of arrange them, not sort of, I am going to arrange them on the right and the left of the base of that snow globe there. So the inspiration for this snow globe originally had greenery growing out of the side of it. It was very simple, but I took that out of the file, and I have put my own spin on that with this good stuff from Tim Holtz here. So I'm going to go back to the photo. It's not snowing in the photo, yet we are sitting in a snow globe. I have decided that I really would like to get current stories documented. So while we aren't in what is typically conceived as a snowy scene, in fact, it's not even a snowy scene, we do fit within the snow globe because it allows me to tell the story of the homestead and how the homestead would be beautiful were we to have been there in the snow. And so it really has nothing to do with snow, yet the snow globe becomes a fantastic place to nestle this photo and convey a scene. So the house that would otherwise be in the snow globe is the Homestead Hotel. The Homestead is a very old resort out in Western Virginia, not West Virginia, but Western Virginia. And I was out there a month ago with Mia and my husband for a musical concert that Mia put on, and it inspired us to go out there for Christmas to see all of the lights. So you just saw me glue all of that down, again using my Ultra Bond. Now I'm going to go between various collections. The rest of this is process video. You've seen all the technique. This is Gina K foam tape. It's on a roll. I love it. I prefer tape to squares because I can make things as long as I want them to be without peeling off tons and tons of backing. And so I've used that to raise that label from Echo Park up off of the snow globe, kind of like you usually see. Not always, but often snow globes will have that label there, and I thought that was perfect and perfect contrast to put the title. And one of the things that I do want to point out that I do not do on video, I do this off camera, but the green of the foam, while I love the scene that I've created with that flock there, it really, can you see, even just watching the video, those greens really stand out, and there's just something missing. I feel like you have that crisp white around the edges of the snow globe, and it needs something to kind of dull that off and mute that. And so I am going to put two of the trees that I cut out as part of the innards of the cut file there to mute that. So what I've just shown you there is I have ThermOWeb version of glue dots, sticky dots, and I'm going to use that to hold that chipboard bird in the greenery on the right hand side there. I could have used the liquid glue, but I like how tacky the glue dot is, and it allows that bird and the foliage, the greenery, to just kind of float a little bit. So I've now got a stencil from the Wishing You Joy stamp and stencil set, and I have some white glitter gel, and I'm just going to run bits and pieces through the stencil. It's opaque, although it is a white, or it's named white, it is pretty opaque, and it just adds some snowflake shimmer to the background of this. So while it is a snow globe and the snow should be inside the globe, it kind of moves around the globe. There is some on the border with that silver, but really the snowflakes end up being on the outside, and it's more just to create some visual interest on the background of the layout there. So I'm going to run that through, and a quick tip, if you use that metal palette knife that I was using, that's from Vicki Boutin, if you get the glitter gel in places where you don't want it, if you scrape it up with the edge of that fine palette knife, it comes up queenly and quickly. When you put cleanly and quickly together, you get queenly. Quickly and cleanly, and you can't tell that you've added gel that you didn't want. And I actually just scraped that back into the container. So I'm going to set that aside to dry so that I can finish embellishing the rest of the layout. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to use a little bit more of that foam roll tape and put that little bit of pop of red to the left-hand side of the snow globe there. So we have, again, more Echo Park. These are snowflake dies. These are some of, I have a small snowflake problem. I have just about everything snowflake and imaginable. And I'm going to cut those out of red, a navy, and vellum. And again, as I did with the greenery, I am going to spare you the agony of me watching me roll this through a million times. I've found that I've had to use a shim for a lot of dies lately. I don't know if it's the plates or something going on, but yeah, I've had to use a shim and run things through multiple times. So I've shown you that one, and I will skip through the rest of it, but safe to say that all of the innards of those snowflakes make quite a mess. And yeah, it did end up becoming quite messy. So I'll run those through 3 different times, and actually I'm going to run it through 4 times because I'm going to switch red. So I had the red that was actually the base of the snow globe, that same red, but I wanted a more truer red against that wood grain because the more maroony red didn't really pop, and so I will switch reds and run that through again. And I'm going to use my Ultra Bond again to adhere that down. I even use the Ultra Bond for the vellum, and you'll see in the close-ups that you can kind of see the spots where they went through the vellum, but if you put it sparingly, it's not too noticeable. I also recommend that you adhere it, let it dry a little bit partially, and then stick it down, and it doesn't become as noticeable. And that is pretty much going to wrap up the snow globe part of that. Off camera, I am also going to put some navy. I'm going to put 2 paper layers, 2 thin paper layers behind the photo, and a sticker that says getaway. I happened to be walking by some of my embellishments and I saw that getaway and I was like, oh, that's perfect. And then those are the, and I'm also going to journal off camera. I always journal off camera, partly because I don't write out my journaling beforehand. I usually ad-lib it as I'm doing it. So it takes a while because I'm thinking as I am writing as well. So that is the completed snowflake part of the layout. And now it is time to find some sequins to add a little bit more shimmer to that. So I just have some opaque sequins. They're kind of shimmery, opaque sequins, and it just adds to the effect. I've already got the glitter that's in the glitter gel, but I wanted a little bit more, and I'm going to use my Ultra Bond for that. And because I used to design for a sequins company, I've got the art of sticking sequins down to, I've got it down as an art. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a blob of glue beside the glitter, and then I'm going to put the tip of the glue into the little hole in the center of the sequence and lift it up and drop it down into the glue. So you can see I have sped this up, but I don't struggle at all. Literally, it's glue, pick, drop, glue, pick, drop, and it goes down quickly that way. Then once those are down, it's time to add the letters. So I've already got Christmas in the chipboard that's above that little label there. And then on camera, I'm going to put at wintergreen. However, I later discovered that I wasn't at wintergreen, and I don't know why I put wintergreen. We were at the homestead. So off camera, and I'm going to spare you the agony of me shifting all of these letters around, I'm going to put Christmas at the homestead, and that ends up being the title. So that, my friends, is how this layout came together. I know it's a little lengthy for what I normally do for videos. Enjoy the close-ups. If you have any questions about the techniques that I did, please don't hesitate to ask them in the box down below. Take care. I hope you're doing well.